Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to this first virtual meeting of the Dorset Full Council. We have a very short agenda and a small number of members in virtual attendance, but this is a public meeting. I remind you that the normal rules of behaviour and respect for others' views must apply. Colleagues, I've been reminded to ask you to turn off your video and your microphones unless you are speaking. Apologies. Other than those members nominated by the group leaders, all members are deemed to have sent their apologies for this meeting. Are there any declarations of interest? If I could then move to Chairman's announcements. And we are living through a very unusual time of great worry to all, especially for their own health and that of their loved ones. On behalf of all councillors, I would like to thank all of our staff who've thrown everything into doing whatever is necessary to support the residents of Dorset at this difficult time. People outside the authority may not be aware that a school centre was set up immediately within the council when the scale of the emergency was known, in order to redeploy staff to frontline tasks, which has led to considerable changes of job, staff working long hours and over weekends to get resources and food out to people. Also, the bulk of our staff have been working from home, which will lead to longer term changes in working practice. This whole COVID-19 operation has been an exercise in successful partnership working, and in my view, would have been vastly more difficult to deal with had we been 6 authorities rather than 1. So on your behalf, councillors, I thank our Dorset Council staff and all those working in the NHS, care services, and the whole range of key worker roles in our community for your dedication and determination at this time to do the best for the residents of Dorset. The demonstrations of the past fortnight since the tragic death of Mr Floyd in the USA have further emphasised that the lives of all the poor, disadvantaged and vulnerable matter, and I'm confident this council will renew its efforts to provide the best possible service for all our residents, regardless of race and culture. Can we now move to public participations? This is an extraordinary meeting, and questions and statements have been required to relate to the item of business on the agenda, i.e. dispensations. And we have one question, which is now on your screens, and I'm asking the leader to respond to that question.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'd first of all like to thank Mr Calvert for his question, although much of what I'm going to say can be found in the agenda report, but it's important that we respect the question and give the questioner a response. A full council has been asked to approve a blanket dispensation for all councillors during the pandemic period to ensure that councillors don't fall foul of the 6-month rule during the period, either due to illness or the fact that the committee on which they serve are currently postponed. It's important to note that any councillor who does not attend a meeting in any 6-month period, regardless of a postponement of a meeting, ceases to be a councillor immediately, which will result in the loss of local community representation at this important time, as all council elections have been postponed until May 2021. Any dispensation for failure to attend a meeting in any 6-month period must be approved prior to the end of that period. At the beginning of the lockdown period in March, the council had to put in place arrangements for the council's committees to meet on a virtual platform in line with the new COVID regulations put in place by government. Due to the resources required to achieve this and the council staff being diverted to other duties associated with COVID-19, the council prioritised a number of essential decision-making committees to be held virtually, which are set out in the report. Not all members of the council serve on one of these prioritised committees, and some members have not attended a meeting since February 2020, which would mean that they would automatically cease to be a councillor at a date prior to the annual meeting on the 3rd of September. It is therefore important that to avoid democratic deficit, the full council approved dispensation to cover the period to May 2021. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Leader. I hope Mr Calvert is satisfied that that answers his question very clearly. Petitions and deputations. I understand we have no petitions or deputations. And questions from councillors. I understand we have no questions from councillors. In which case I'm going to move straight to the report and the which Councillor Flower is going to read to us, and then we will debate the motion. And can I remind colleagues, in this unusual virtual situation, if you wish to speak on the motion, please can you indicate by typing RTS, in other words, right to speak, just RTS, and only that, in the chat box on your machine that I can then see, and I will call you in turn. And so can I now hand over to Councillor Spencer Flower, please?
Thank you very much again, Chairman. Well, colleagues, you'll be pleased to know that I don't intend to repeat some of what I've previously used in the answer to the question, and I'm sure you've all had the opportunity to read a fairly crisp report, and this is a procedural matter that we need to deal with today. What I would like to add to what I said earlier in answer to the question is that we didn't get, as most of you will be aware, we had to wait for government to lay new legislation before Parliament, and then for us to get the regulations to enable councils to put in place virtual meetings. So the first meeting we had, as you will all recall, was the 5th of May, which was the cabinet meeting. We've had others since. But I just wanted to reflect on that because it is important that any delays that have not always been of our making, in fact, very little has. So, but it is all set out in the report. I don't intend to read it all, Chairman, as you might have just slightly suggested just now. I'm going to take the view that colleagues, and there is cross-party support for the process we're going through this morning, and I'm very grateful for all the good work that's been going on, not with all 82 councillors, let alone a cross-party position on this. And I think it reflects the way we've done things in this council in the past year. So without further ado, Chairman, I'm going to move the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Is that seconded?
Yes, Chairman, I'm happy to second it. It's Nick Ireland.
Thank you, Councillor Ireland.
I'd like to speak on the motion at the end, please.
Thank you. I have as yet not noticed anyone wishing to speak. Does anyone wish to speak? Otherwise, I think, Mr. Ireland, we can go straight to you. Oh, Claire Sutton is alive and well and wishes to speak. Thank you, Claire. Can someone unmute Claire?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and I'm sorry for that. Yes, when we discussed this back in March, we were watching, the images from Northern Italy and New York, and we were desperate to ensure that the same horrors didn't visit Dorset, obviously. And at the time that 100% of our focus should be on keeping our residents safe, with the assurance that key committees would continue was obvious to us. However, despite the fact that the UK has the worst per capita death rate in Europe, as we know, we in Dorset have been spared the worst, and we thank Dorset Council staff across all departments for their wonderful response. As it became apparent, though, that the sky wasn't falling in and that we appeared to have the expertise to run large meetings successfully, and I refer in particular to the community response Q&A expertly facilitated by Laura Miller, which involved, I think, over 70 participants. And given growing concerns about the democratic deficit, and Spencer, as you know, I wrote to you on behalf of the Green Group on the 19th of May, requesting that the July full council meeting be reinstated and suggesting 3 possible formats. And I suggested the agenda could be structured to minimise the need for extensive officer input, so should not unduly impact on frontline services. And as you know, Spencer, we discussed this at great length, and you provided a detailed response, which was really, really welcome. Now, similarly, though with significant reservations, I'm going to support this motion. However, for me, there are 3 key questions that I want to make at this point. The first is, there is, as we know, legitimate public concern that if members are not required to have attended any meetings for fully 12 months, decisions are not being properly scrutinised. How can we provide genuine assurance to them that this is not the case? And similarly, via what means can residents put their concerns to us in a public forum between now and our scheduled full council meeting in October? And thirdly, how will we enable residents to monitor the contribution which their ward councillors are making, including in meetings during this period? Thank you.
Thank you, Claire.
Can I come back, Chairman?
Yes, please, Leader.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Claire, and for your support. As you recall, when we had conversations initially, we weren't aware at the time that legislation was going to be put before Parliament that allowed virtual meetings, and indeed allow virtual meetings and attendance at a virtual meeting to count as attendance, because the situation was unclear at that time. And in fact, this is very much an insurance policy, because the majority of members will have attended a virtual meeting at one point or another leading up to annual council on the 3rd of September. So I think this is just it may not be used very much at all, but it's just a safeguard to make sure that no one falls through the crack. You mentioned full council in October. You've got full council, the annual council, on the 3rd of September, and I'm expecting to be a little bit of business there as well. So the opportunity for anybody to come along and ask the question, full council exists much earlier than October. And indeed, we have actually, you'll know this, we've taken questions at Cabinet around issues that are of concern in the public domain, and we've dealt with them appropriately. So I don't think there's a loss of opportunity there, and quite honestly, quite differently. But you know, you and I, all of us made this judgment some months ago when the first cropped up, and you eloquently put that point. But you know, we are where we are, and it's just really, this process has been used quite extensively around the sector. There have been a couple of cases early on where members did get disqualified for no fault of their own, and I just want to make sure, and I think we all agree with this, that we don't want it to happen to any member in Dorset. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Leader. I have waiting to speak Councillor Kimber, Councillor Took and Councillor Ezard. Councillor Kimber.
Thank you, Chair. And if I can first of all say thank you for the thanks that you gave the emergency services and all the key workers at the beginning of the meeting. As a Labour councillor, I want to actually agree with that great point that you've made. And big special thanks to our staff. I've seen so many of our staff putting themselves out, and also especially on Portland, and I know I'll get into trouble with other councils if I don't mention Portland. The work amongst community groups has been fantastic, especially our food banks. I wanted to ask a question. I sense from the public there is a bit of concern about the final date, which is around about the 6th of May 2021. And I want to ask, as we come out of lockdown, we know the 2 metre rule. Have we thought of, as it eases, about going out, say, holding meetings in large halls, and I'll name one, the Pavilion in Weymouth, where we can keep that social distancing? So that's my question: is, have we thought about, as it gets a bit easier, going into large halls? Thank you. Can I come back, Chairman?
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Leader.
You'll be aware, as Chairman of Council, that one of the options we've been looking at, we don't know what the social distancing guidance will be in September, and we're all hoping the government's working assumption is that the crisis will be over by the end of July. Now, that was set some months ago. Whether it will be or not is another matter, and none of us can really judge that. The reason we went for May 2021 is just, I suspect we won't be using the blanket dispensation by then anyway, because all being well, whether it's virtual, whether it's hybrid, or whether all in the room together on the 3rd of September, all members who attend that meeting will then requalify anyway. So I think it's just again a safeguard not to have to bring it back again. We've done it this way. The legislation allows it, so we've taken the opportunity to deal with it that way. But we haven't looked at external facilities, Paul. What we have looked at is the potential for a hybrid within the council chamber. It's got facilities in there that I think most of us appreciate, but it's something that we're going to keep live and be agile around it and keep a watchful eye on it. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you. My next speaker is Councillor Took.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Thank you. I'd like to echo the comments that have been made about the excellent service we've had from our emergency services and from our council officers who've worked extremely hard during very testing and trying times. I understand that one of the reasons that we're not having more remote council meetings is that we need an extra officer to attend at these meetings to take the minutes, as well as the number of officers that are required to actually manage the meetings. And given that these meetings are recorded, do we still need to take contemporaneous minutes, or could they be done from the recording? Is there still a problem with the number of officers that are required? And if it is possible to find a workaround for this, should we not be holding far more meetings virtually than we currently do, and effectively restore our normal schedule? Local democracy is critical. If it's not, then clearly we can all just go home anyway. In order to maintain local democracy, then we should be holding meetings on our normal schedule, whether they be remote, whether they be live, whether they be hybrid. Thank you.
Would you like me to come back, Chairman?
Yes, please, Leader.
I mean, David reflects on one issue, which is having to have additional officer resource around virtual meetings, but it's the tip of an iceberg. And as it says in the report, a substantial number of officers have been seconded into areas of work they wouldn't normally be involved in helping the council to deal with the COVID-19 crisis. The crisis isn't over yet, and until it is, we're not going to see that secondment disappear. Therefore, what we've tried to do by having a selection of meetings at this time, and you're absolutely right, it's not the ideal situation, but it's one we can cope with to enable us to have that resource in the right place. Bearing in mind we've gone from 6 councils to 1, which the chairman mentioned earlier, a massive shakeout. A lot of officers have only been in post a matter of months, and I think we need to appreciate that we can run our democratic model in a reasonably acceptable way in the short term until we get back to the normal processes, but do respect that, as Paul Kimber said, the massive commitment that we've had from officers in dealing with this crisis. So I understand what he's saying, and in fact, quite a number of additional meetings have been scheduled now beyond the minimum number that we put in the report, and members will be aware of that, and I know many have been involved in it. So we are very active, but we want to get back to normal, as he says. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Leader. And the next question is from Beryl Ezard.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to reiterate the thanks you gave to all the officers and all the councillors. Yeah, everyone has stepped up in a very, very large way and been absolutely amazing, certainly around the Wareham area. But I would also like to especially single out the fire service and fire and rescue service that have actually been fantastic and dampen down the fire that we had, which one of them, when we were lucky enough to have a view round, me and my co-councillor Ryan Holloway, to actually have a look at the extent of the first fire. Unfortunately, we've had another fire this week. We are asking very much that we could, get up a petition, or there is a petition going to ban these portable barbecue things that are sold in the shops. And I would like the backing of the council to try and do that, because it is an ongoing problem with this very dry weather we're having. I'm just hoping we're going to have a big deluge of rain in the next week, a day or so. But it is a worry. But I would like to send a great big thank you to, I see Mike Parks is also a fire officer, for all the work they've done, because they hung out there for almost 10 days to actually make sure there were no hotspots. So I would like to send on my thanks for that. But I would like, there is a very big emotive thing going on with the community about these barbecues and fires, and a restriction of people coming here from elsewhere. I know that your letter, Spencer, has been a really welcome, sent to the Minister for Housing and Communities and Local Government to actually try and and also the Prime Minister to try and stop the travelling so far. But I think it could have gone a bit further in saying that we could only travel within the county, or at least only 20 miles from home, and that wasn't mentioned actually. So anyway, I don't know if you've had a reply, but I would like if you could answer that one for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beryl. That's got nothing to do with the matter we're discussing, though we all totally sympathise.
But I wondered if he had a reply.
I can comment briefly, Chairman, if that helps. Beryl, you've managed to somehow tenuously link your points to the item on the agenda, but I do appreciate your point about portable barbecues. I'm on that particular issue, and hopefully we can. I won't say any more than that today, other than we are going to take that thing very seriously, and we will be dealing with it hopefully before the end of this month, because I think it's really important. It is an issue that seems to have grown. We've had portable barbecues for years, but for some reason or other, perhaps to do with lockdown or whatever it is, it's been more in our focus. And you mentioned Mike Parks, a retained firefighter, actually in Ferndown, who got seconded over to Wareham. He and many others have done a fabulous job down there, and we should all respect our emergency services for dealing with that sort of thing. And I haven't had a direct response from the Prime Minister or the Secretary of State, but I had some comments through the media from the Cabinet Office. But I am in weekly conversation with our MPs, and I stress the points that I've made in those letters to the point where I can almost remember word for word. So I keep on that pressure, because it's very important to Dorset that I do just that. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you both. Can we now get back to the actual agenda and the matter in hand? Councillor Wolf, you wanted to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to address a couple of the points that Councillor Sutton raised related to this motion, the impact of this motion and the implications. She said that scrutiny might be reduced. I beg to differ. There has been a really useful scrutiny meeting run by Piers Brown, which has taken place already, which was conducted virtually. And there will be scrutiny conducted by Matt Hall, the Audit and Governance Committee, and I expect other committees to convene both virtually and in hybrid form potentially later. So whilst the concerns about scrutiny are valid, I do not believe that we will reduce scrutiny, and I know, having talked to all of the scrutiny chairs, that they are intending on ensuring that their goal of proper and appropriate scrutiny is maintained. The second point was, how do we measure the performance of councillors? I don't believe this is affected by this particular proposal, because we always have a problem measuring the performance of councillors once they're elected. There is no template that says they've got to do anything, they've got to go to meetings, other than they've got to come to these meetings. And what we're doing is we're going to allow virtual attendance to be effectively the equivalent of physical attendance. So it is an issue, but I don't know that it's particularly related to this proposal. There was a conversation about hybrid meetings. Councillor Sutton and others were with me yesterday at the EAP on Recovery and Reset, and we certainly discussed hybrid meetings, and I think this will be able to continue. And the point about recording minutes for people from Democratic Services, raised by Councillor David Took, was raised at the EAP for IT, and that is being looked into. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. I apologise to Councillor Knock and Councillor James Somper, whose right to speak request I've missed. Can I ask Councillor Knock to speak, followed by Councillor Somper?
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate that, and it's not a problem at all. I was very happy to wait till after Councillor Wolf has spoken, as actually he covered a couple of my points anyway, so many thanks to Councillor Wolf for that. I actually wanted to come back to one of the ideas that Councillor Sutton floated, which was that there would be a lack of representation for people in this period, and the fact that people be annoyed that their councillors don't have to attend a meeting for I think a year, she said. And actually, I don't feel this motion does that whatsoever. I believe this motion is to stop councillors from being disbarred through no fault of their own. There is nothing in the motion that says councillors don't have to continue doing everything they can to support their community. And I myself, before I was elected, and I used to be, believe it or not, a voter that would actually elect other councillors, I would care a lot more about what the my councillor was doing, especially during this time of national emergency. I'd want to know what they were doing in the local area, how they're representing us. I would not be concerned about them technically being dismissed because they happen to miss 6 months worth of meetings through no fault of their own. I think we're kind of looking at this in a very odd way. This is just a blanket statement in order to stop anyone who's not on many committees, which I guess in some ways will affect the minority parties the most. So people that aren't on many committees from being unnecessarily disbarred. I think their actions and the way they work during this time speaks a lot more. And so I fully support this, and I'm happy for it to go ahead to the vote.
Thank you, Councillor Knock. And I understand, Councillor Somper, you do not wish to speak as Councillor Wolf has covered your point. Does anyone else wish to speak? Would they please indicate? Otherwise, no one has appeared on my list. I'm going to call on Councillor me, says Councillor Ireland. Yes, I see you, Councillor Ireland. Just checking there's no one else. You wish to speak as seconder for the motion at the end, Councillor Ireland. Do you wish to speak now?
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, I'm happy to second this motion on behalf of the Lib Dem group, because as has been pointed out already, with the current situation we find ourselves in, there's a very real risk that some of our elected members may be disqualified through no fault of their own. However, I have to say that I am concerned that we were doing this now. We're 81 days into lockdown. Manchester City Council, for example, they saw the issues lockdown might bring, and they passed a similar motion to this back on the 25th of March. And around about the same time, I was comparing notes with Vicky Slade, who I'm pleased to say is still leader of our neighbouring BCP Council. And one comment she made was that she thought Dorset Council was ahead of the game in terms of her own council in being able to provide swift and appropriate IT solutions for the tasks we're going to face ahead. And so if we fast forward to this week, on Tuesday, BCP Council, they met virtually for the first time. They had a meeting with a full agenda, not a single item. And they had all their available councillors, all 75 of them, participating without any limitation at all. And for those who watched it live, I'm sure you probably agree that it was engaging and exciting. It was better than anything on the telly. Who would have thought full council could be such a thrill? So we've all had to learn and adapt in the last few months, and it's clear we've done great work in many of our areas for the benefit of our residents. But I can't help getting the impression that in getting the business of this council functioning again, as Councillor Sutton has referred to, we have our peers zooming off into the distance, and we're still behind the metaphorical man with the red flag doing 4 miles an hour. There's been a lot of talk recently about recovery and what that means, and as Councillor Wolf has just mentioned, we had the first meeting of the Recovery AAP yesterday, and I believe I'm probably right in saying that the consensus was that recovery isn't to getting back where we were before, but getting to where we want to be. And what we do now and how we change is part of that. So we shouldn't be hanging our plans on specific dates. COVID-19 isn't going to go away anytime soon. We've got residents and probably colleagues, elected members, who will be shielding until a vaccine is available or the virus disappears somehow. And that isn't going to be in September. I don't see the proposed meeting of this council in September taking place in County Hall or at Southwark's House, where everybody is there. It's going to be a hybrid at best, with members and officers and the public being present both and online. So we need to be bringing forward solutions as soon as possible to get all committees and all bodies of the council operating for what for now is our new normal. This is what we've got to live with until we know differently. So instead of paddling around in the shallows, we need to be surfing the zeitgeist wave, and we need to be getting on with it. However, I do commend this motion to Council.
Thank you, Councillor Ireland. And none of you have actually mentioned the joy of not having to spend hours driving on the road to and from meetings, which is an advantage. As no one else, you have wound up, no one else has indicated they wish to speak. I'm therefore going to put it to the vote, and I've got two ways of doing that. One is by doing a roll call in alphabetical order, or because no one so far has actually spoken against. Can I ask the other way and ask anyone who is wishing to vote against to actually switch on your microphone to speak so that we know who wants to vote against this? Does anyone wish to vote against this motion? Is anyone indicating?
We seem to have lost the chairman. I don't know if that means that Val needs to take over.
Yes, I'm going to, Vice Chairman, I'm going to put you across now, please, so you can take the vote.
Thank you very much. The chairman went down the road of asking for anyone who wanted to vote against this motion, please, to make themselves known. As far as I can see, we haven't had any comments against the motion, so I think we could just declare it as taken with full approval.
Sorry, Val. Sorry, Val. You needed to ask for abstentions as well.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So, would anybody that would like to abstain, could they please make that known also? We have Councillor Dave Bolwell wanting to abstain. Sorry. I'm looking at all the, I think we'll go through the list actually, and then there'll be absolute clarity on this. So I will go through all the councillors, please, and I would like you to just say approve, abstain or against. Thank you. Councillor Andrews.
Approve.
Councillor Bartlett.
Approve, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Bolwell.
Approve.
Councillor Brooks.
Approve.
Councillor Canning.
Approve.
Councillor Dover.
Approve.
Councillor Ezard.
Approve.
Councillor Flower.
Approve.
Councillor Fry.
Approve.
Councillor Gibson.
Approve.
Councillor Gorringe.
Approve.
Councillor Haynes.
Approve.
Councillor Ireland.
Approve.
Councillor Jesperson.
Approve.
Councillor Imber.
Approve.
Councillor Lacey Clark.
Approve.
Councillor Parker.
Approve.
Councillor Parks.
Approve.
Councillor Parry.
Approve.
And myself, and I'm approving. Councillor Rennie.
Approve.
Councillor Somper.
Approve.
Councillor Sutton.
Approve.
Councillor Taylor.
Approve.
I think that's all of us. Can't
No,
see
it's
any more.
not.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's
Turn the
not.
page. Councillor Took.
Approve.
Councillor Wolf.
Approve.
And Councillor Batstone, I don't know if she can hear or whether she would like to vote.
I've just got back in. Yes, approve. Carry on.
Thank you very much. So that's everybody. As far as I can see, it's total approval of the motion. I will now hand back to the chairman. Thank you.
That's really kind of you. Thank you. I feel totally competent. I'll probably go again. There are no urgent items. There is no exempt business, and I therefore formally close the meeting at 10:34. Thank you everyone for your attendance, and thank you for staff for your attendance.
Thank you, Chairman.
And keep safe, everyone.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.